Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to our Mantras for Peace talk with the wonderful researcher and mantra lover, Gemma Perry. So happy to have you sharing your time with us today, especially since you just told me that this has been a week full of interviews since all your research has been published in the Australian mainstream media. So, hoot for the power of Om. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do so we can tune in with you?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. So I'm Gemma. I've been researching mantra meditation in the world of science, I guess, for a while now. And before that, I was just practicing a little bit of mantra myself. So that's sort of how I got involved in it all. So currently doing my PhD in mantra and have done my honours and masters in psychology in Om.
You in an alternate universe, I would be you, and probably you might be me, right? Like, and that is so fascinating and exciting to me. I love that you're doing your PhD in mantra. Um, so the question before we get into about mantra and research and can mantra make you a better person and all of that good stuff from the Western scientific point of view, I think the question begs to be asked, what got you started in mantra and wanting to research mantra?
Yeah, I mean, often when I say I'm researching mantra, people say, I didn't know there was a PhD in mantra. And I mean, there wasn't. There is now. So I guess, look, I had about 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with severe depression. So I was doing some yoga asana classes at the time. And my yoga teacher recommended that I try chanting. And so I did. And it became a really big part of my own healing. And when I had the opportunity to study something in honours in psychology, I ticked the music lab because it was the closest thing I could find to chanting. And yeah, I was asked what I wanted to research, and I said mantra, and they were really open to that. So I've been really blessed with fantastic supervisors that have been supportive of this research. And now we even have another girl that has come into our lab that's also researching chanting. So we're getting a little group of us together, and it's really exciting.
That is super exciting. I know last year in the Mantras for Peace wisdom gathering, I had the chance to interview Dr. Hemant Bhargav, who is the head chief scientist for the National Institute of Mental Health in Bangalore, in India. And I think I connected you with him, but it's there, they have some state reasons to be interested in the science of mantra as well. But I just feel all the tingles of excitement and delight to just to see that this is a field that is growing, because of what we both know of the practical benefits for ourselves. For whatever reason, we just like to hear that it's been verified and verified by science, or we like to understand the why of it. And I'm so excited to hear that all of this is going on. So please always reach out to me, and always reach out to our community for help with your surveys and all of that whenever you need it. Okay.
Yeah,
Promise.
thank you. And thank you for your help with the last one.
Oh, it was just
Yeah, we
barely a
got
little teeny bit, but yeah, happy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I mean, we could argue that we don't really need the Western science because a lot of people that are practicing mantra know that it works because yoga is an experimental practice in itself and the mantras. But at the same time, the science is such a great platform to communicate it from and to the people that might not have otherwise come across chanting.
yeah. Um, from your personal point of view, um, what now that you know, like you look back on that transformations that started 12 years ago from your serious depression to where you are now, looking back on it, what do you think happened to you through the chanting practice?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I always want to have a Gemma control condition, which I don't have.
Yes. Yeah.
So
No, I'm not asking for your research. You don't have you're not unbiased.
no, but also like there's just so many variables, right? So
Sure.
obviously I can talk about my life in the last 12 years, but there's also all sorts of other things that we don't know, whether it's mantra or just with that scientific
Diet
perspective.
change or location or
Yeah,
yeah, all those things.
that's
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
But I guess, the first thing that happened, I went to start chanting the first time and I found it incredibly strange, like because we're not prepared for this kind of thing in the Western world. And this wasn't kind of like when I do workshops and things now with people that haven't been introduced to it. We might start with humming, or I talk about the parasympathetic nervous system, but this was not that. This was walking into a room with a fire and orange cloaks and like it was the full bit. um
Yeah. Like
and
kind of
I
did
thought
it feel culty or exotic or
I felt like I was a bit out of my depth, yeah, very exotic. And
and you were. Yeah.
And I just sort of thought, well, I can't really leave, like, because it would be a bit rude to leave, so I'll stay. And anyway, I just found myself back there kind of every Saturday doing the same thing. So just by actually chanting, I felt like time passed very quickly. And then I started trying different sort of traditions as well, Buddhist temples and Hindu temples and just whatever I could find, really.
Mm.
And what happened? I think that when I look back, a big part of it was community. It
Mm.
was coming into community and chanting with other people. And I started to feel a little bit more connected, to myself and other people. I was incredibly, disconnected. I was pretty sick.
Mm.
So that happened. And then I guess when I got to a point of health, we might say that, I was no longer severely depressed. The mantra seemed to go beyond that. It was sort of like, oh, okay, it's actually helping me, become more aware of my thought processes, or I'm having these experiences that I can then come back and integrate into my daily life and that kind of thing. So even like it can be used therapeutically, I think, but I think it also goes beyond those therapeutic benefits. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that maps really well with my personal experience of mantra and what I've watched in, students and clients over the last couple of decades. Like there's like a life jacket stage where it's a very effective life jacket if you are in a depression. And not for it doesn't work for everybody, but it can be a really great tool for that. But then that's kind of like just getting you started to the point like, okay, first you're not just surviving anymore. That's when the mantra can go into other levels of its potential. But that's really interesting what you say about community. I don't I don't want to jump too far away from what happened for you, but do you, since like, we'll timestamp this interview with today's date, August 13th, 2020, mid-pandemic, the world is largely physically distant and doing stuff online from, with each other. Um, do you have any insights on the social element which is non-physical?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I mean, also interesting with our research, because all of our research has now had to go online. So we
Right.
do have some, we do have some data coming
Ooh.
with some online chanting. But apart from that, I think what can happen, especially with lineages, traditions, religions, whatever sort of group people are chanting in, by chanting that specific mantra, they feel that they're connecting to that group. So it might
Mm-hmm.
be just by chanting the same mantra, they know that somebody else somewhere in the world is also chanting that. And that
Mm-hmm.
can make, a special connection. But then there's also just the individual practice. And
Mm-hmm.
it can, again, we sort of come back to the life jacket. This is really a difficult time for everyone, and it might just be kind of relaxing the system enough that you can get through the day at the
Yeah.
moment. Like
Yeah.
everyone's going through completely different challenges, and
Yeah.
that, in itself, we need to feel relaxed so that we can feel connected, so that we can have a better relationship with ourselves. Ultimately,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking for, is the relationship with self. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I say this to myself, that I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that practice to lean in on, um, as a, you know, okay, tradition and lineage and kind of community culture aside, which is, that's all extremely powerful, but just knowing that the tool I have to maintain my nervous system self regulation is inside of me, and I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to, I don't require any special tools. It's all right there. And the mantra is, it's such a powerful thing. But it's cool to know that you're getting the data to suggest that, um, that people knowing that other people are chanting the same mantra is, could be meeting that need for community, or could be, filling the social, um, nourishing the social aspect. Because
Yeah, we
that's,
actually,
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
we actually don't have data on that. That was just kind of a concept, but
Okay.
there is some data on things like virtual choirs, for example. So they have
Mm-hmm.
these virtual choirs, and in that, nobody sees anybody really. They make a video of themselves and they submit that video of them singing, and that actually provided people with a sense of social connection. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's sort of just having the shared goal that can be
Mm.
something. Yeah, but we don't have data on the mantra yet. That was,
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess we'll wait and see what comes out with that. But we are unquestionably in a at the beginning of a whole new world with how we are connecting to community and how we are meeting those needs. So, it's going to be really interesting to see how things develop and what strategies work better than others. Yeah,
yeah.
fun, fun. Wow. Well, what one of the questions I wanted to ask you about your research is there something that you've come across that really surprised you, or that was maybe even opposite from what you, if you have, of course you try to not have any preconceived notions, but we know that's impossible. So yeah, I want to know if there's anything that you've come across that's just kind of blown your mind.
Yeah, well, you know, like in science, we always have hypotheses, and often at the end we're saying we were surprised to find that, because your hypothesis often doesn't, you know, is not matching with the data. Um, but one of the things that I've found surprising, or that, yeah, kind of really excited about, is from this survey that we recently did. And we asked people about their experiences with chanting, and specifically mystical states. So we didn't say, have you had a mystical state? We've actually got 30 questions that, you know, define like loss of boundaries, loss of time and space, and then we do analysis to figure that out. But about 60% of the people that were reporting to chanting, to do chanting practices, had these extreme alterations in their consciousness from the practice. So, and that's with all different traditions. So we've, you know, asked people from the Hindu tradition, Buddhist tradition, some chanting traditions that have been developed by a composer called Takatina. I'm not sure whether you're aware of that one. So all different traditions, and yeah, this mystical experience seems to be a common occurrence. So that's exciting.
Wow, that's really cool. There's so many ways you could get so granular with all of that research, right? And like, you know, compare the mystical states. It just delights me to think about even having to develop a questionnaire to define what your mystical states are.
Yeah, well, we used one that was already sort of scientifically valid and reliable, and we used one that they use a lot in psychedelic research.
Oh, okay.
So it's really interesting to see that chanting can have such a profound effect on our consciousness.
Yeah. Um, wow. Well, having can you shed any light on that? Like, do you since this is off of our question books, but I know psychedelics are a much more common and getting to be more mainstream than ever before, and also chanting and mantras has reached all around the globe as well. Do you have any? Can you explain maybe some correlations between those two states, or is that not in your in your wheelhouse?
Yeah, I mean, you mean
Like what's
like the state,
happening?
what's
Yeah,
happening
like what's happening in the
biologically?
psychedelic state versus, when you take mushrooms or whatever, versus when you're in a sound initiated mystical state.
Yeah, they have found some similarities between sort of, neurology and things like that in those states. So they've compared, maybe not chanting though, they looked at sort of meditation practices and experiences and psychedelics. But there's things that, I mean, to get into these states, we can use all sorts of different things, ritual, there's starvation, there's lack of sleep, there's, all of this kind of thing. And chanting is just one of the ways to get there. But so what happens in the brain is often similar, there's regions of the brain that are sort of like related to time and space, and they're sort of deactivated because we have this sense of loss of boundaries and things like that. So it's there's also Andrew Newberg, who does some research into altered states of consciousness, and he goes into all of the neuroscience of it all, and it's really interesting. Islamic prayer, looking at someone doing it mechanically versus someone doing it with full surrender to God, and looking at the difference that happens in the brain.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 That's fascinating. I mean, personally, I'd rather chant mantras than starve myself or be sleep deprived, but
That's what I always say.
I have
I'm
my
pretty sure you can just
preferences.
sing.
I'm pretty sure you can just, yeah, and still have cookies. Um,
That's right.
and a full night's sleep. Oh, I love it. Wow. Well, I'm super excited, and I hope that our readers and listeners will kind of follow you and see what you're doing, because I'm happy. I'm just really happy to be connected to somebody who's putting, making these connections and putting the information out there, for us to understand, like, what's going on. I know for myself, I mean, to share with you, like, I've had a, a lifetime of mystical experiences that I don't really talk about very much. Um, Mostly because I'm, a little afraid people think I'm crazy, and because, it's personal. Like, it's not something to write a book about, in my opinion. It's my personal experience. And I used to do some psychedelics when I was in high school, and, my early, like, late teens and whatnot. And and the and the sensation of the kind of mystical states of communion that I have with the sound vibrations is very similar. And I've been wondering, I've been really hoping for someone to come across my path that could explain what's happening in the brain, because it when you align all of the variables of, rhythm and harmony and enunciation and thought, mind, word, and deed, in the attunement with the mantra, of me, there's no doubt that's a window into states of union that are quite remarkable, and don't require exogenous substances, in order to trigger those biochemical processes, which may be our natural state, or could be our natural state if we knew how to get there. So,
Yeah.
more of that, please. Because who wouldn't want to be, like, in a way? I mean, I'm a kind of a utopian dreamer for sure, but, like, if we could live in a world where we knew our unity, where we felt, as a lived, embodied experience, that we are all connected, not just to each other, but to all of life. Like, yes, more of that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, something else that we found in this data is that people that were experiencing the mystical states are higher on altruism as well.
Yeah.
And so we can't say that the mystical state makes them higher on altruism, or whether they're more altruistic and therefore they're experiencing the mystical state. But it is an interesting combination of things, because once you have an experience of feeling connected to, everything and everyone, you're going to be a nicer person. If you think that person's connected to you, you treat them as a part of yourself. So yeah, definitely brings in a lot more connection and kindness.
Yeah. So the moral of the story, and your tagline for the ABC video that the Australian Broadcasting Company, right? The mainstream media in Australia. Can chanting make you a better person, or something like that? Can it make? And your preliminary answer is yes. It sounds like.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure whether they've used that as I've certainly used that in some of my talks, but I don't think it's been a headline yet.
It's on your YouTube. It's on the YouTube.
Is it?
Can chanting make you a kinder person, or something like that? Yeah.
Oh, so it has been
That's
used. Very good.
uh-huh. I just saw it right before we started talking. It's out there. That's a thing.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so it makes me think about, this project, the Mantras for Peace project, is essentially, as an invitation for people to chant a mantra, a universal mantra for peace, hopefully every day for at least 5 minutes a day for 108 days, knowing that there are hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people, if you think about the entire Indian, the South Asian Hindu community who do this mantra regularly, that are doing this prayer for peace. Um, how, yeah, what do you have to say? Like, what do you have to say about that? Um, the potential of that subtle, what we call subtle activism, the chanting for peace, particularly.
Mm. Well, I think there's a lot of kind of levels in that, because that's sort of when you're chanting for peace, or when you're chanting for for the greater good, or for humanity, the intention becomes a very big part of it. And you could say that that becomes like a sort of compassion meditation, which can be really, really powerful. But
Mm,
then if you don't even have that intention, and you're just simply chanting, then we go back to, you're becoming more relaxed, you're letting go of ruminative thinking. You might accidentally, stumble upon yourself and a mystical experience in the process and come back a bit more altruistic.
mm,
Yeah, but I think that the intention in it becomes very powerful as well. Definitely,
mm,
you know.
mm. So what I'm hearing from you, and it's kind of what I've heard, what we've already been talking about, but just my summary, and tell me if I'm on the right track here, is that um, that somebody just coming into mantra and just starting off with a practice could receive the benefit of having that initial drop in their cortisol levels, like the lowering of stress chemicals, which would enable them to feel more relaxed and safe. And then the next level might be opening into the possibility of various aspects of the mystical state, which then could also correlate to them having more feelings of altruism. So it's like layers. But that first, you can't get there if you're stressed, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it may
can
be.
you?
I
Can you? I
don't
don't know.
know. I'm not sure. I mean, this is, is it a linear process? I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
guess I was describing it as one, but then, like as I was saying with my process, like it was a lot of the thing was coming into community
Yeah.
and actually chanting with other people, hearing other people, being in synchrony with other people. And that can just help us to feel naturally more connected. That connection can help us to feel less stressed. So
Mm,
because, oxytocin, they call the love
right.
hormone. And as oxytocin increases, cortisol decreases, and other way around. So,
Mm,
it's hard to say which way it goes, or
yeah.
for each individual person as well.
Yeah. It's a chicken or the egg question, I guess. We keep sort of circling around those those types of things. But I don't know. I think for me, it's useful whether or not we're able to make a conclusion, a definitive conclusion, um, knowing, I guess, having the lid taken off a little bit of the cycles that are happening and the correlations that have been shown, um, and verified is helpful. Yeah. And I suppose in the end, especially if you're in a stressed out and desperate state, whatever works, whatever
Whatever
helps,
works.
whatever
Absolutely.
helps, even if it's 1%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you know what? This is, this global pandemic that we're in. It's obviously a terrible thing for many people, but gosh, it is kind of really good for chanting. I mean, people have never wanted to chant more, and that, it's like whatever works, that people
yeah,
are desperate. And I was desperate when I started chanting. And you
yeah,
get to a point that it's like, you know what, that seems weird, but oh, it works. Okay, I'll try that. Or
yep,
whatever it is. So
yeah,
yeah, that our suffering actually motivates us to do these things.
yeah. And the old quote that necessity is the mother of invention. You've you figure out a way to get to give yourself what you need, and do what you need to do, to
Yeah.
be in as good of a state as possible. Yeah. Wow. Well, moment of acknowledgement and gratitude um, for those of us who have the privilege and the luxury to be in a safe space, to be pursuing our research, for me to be, doing this service, and to be, sharing these educational resources with people. Um, I guess that's altruism in action. try to help out when you have something to share. Yeah. Wow. Well, there's one other area that I wanted to dig into just a little bit with you, which is something that's, it's maybe a big topic, but I'm curious to kind of know what your thoughts are on it. Has to do with cultural appropriation and the scientific method. There are a lot of different sides to a lot of different perspectives on this, but one one thing that always kind of it there's a note to it which is always a little bit odd to me, and I think bears some reflection that, you know the yogic methods have been tried and tested for thousands of years, right? Like, people have been chanting these mantras for ages. They've been doing pranayama. They've been working with these practices, which are like integral parts of the indigenous medical and psychological health system. And then Western scientists come and do research according to Western methods, and then claim their findings. And so, what's your feeling about that? And how do you dance with that in your research work?
Yeah. There's a lot of problems with Western science, but there's a lot of problems with not having it as well. And so I think that we just need to be mindful of that. Like, there's the diagnostic statistic manual of, how we define a mental disorder. And a lot of people have a problem with that. But,
Mm-hmm.
like, you need to have these 5 things and you're going to be diagnosed with whatever it is. But what if we didn't have that?
Yeah.
Then where would we be? So I think that we need to we need to balance those two worlds, and we just need to also be mindful and realistic about what Western science can measure and what it can't measure.
Mm.
And like, I can't tell you, like, the amount of pseudoscience that comes in through my inbox is too much. It's too much to handle. And I really want to sort of talk about that with the yogic community, because yes, we have these practices. Yes, we can have an experience. Can we fit it into the Western scientific paradigm? Not all of it. And if we can't, it doesn't make it not true. But if we can't, let's not call it science. Let's not, and so I think that we just need to be clear about that's Western science, that's spirituality, that's pseudoscience, and yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. And would you like to talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that's a really important point of discrimination, especially right now, as there is such a profound proliferation of fake news or not fake news and misinformation and quack research. And it seems to me, I don't know about you, but it seems like we're in this like accelerated time where we're losing the ability to make those distinctions.
Yeah.
So if that's, especially if that's like a one of your pet peeves or passion points, give a stand on the pulpit, Gemma, go for it.
Look, what I would say is from my own ignorance, I've learnt a lot of things. So I used to see a book, pick up a book, read a book, and think because I had read it in a book that it was something that was possibly true. And now what I know to do is have a look at the author of the book, have a look at whether that's actually that area of expertise, have a look at where they got the information from, and you would know this with the mantra books as well. I mean, how many people are, claiming to know about these ancient practices, and they haven't really done the study. We have to stay humble in the
or
research
they're basically
and the
not
sharing
even
of these.
spelling the mantras in a way that they can be pronounced correctly. 90% of the books. Sorry.
So yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of problems, and it's people and news can be very, very tricky. There's this sort of they might have done it. It was a prank that they did maybe in the 50s or something, and it's this black and white YouTube video, and they show spaghetti growing, the spaghetti crop. It's like the famous spaghetti crop, and the way that it's done is sort of like really, so what happens in the season of the spring is they have planted, the tone of voice, the way that they've presented it, and people started like trying to get spaghetti seeds so that they could grow spaghetti.
No way.
It's just a really great example of the way that information is put out there. It can be very, very believable, and we need to do our research and find out where it's actually coming from and whether it is true.
Yeah. Well, I think that, so the distinction that you made between spiritual experience, pseudoscience, and science, I mean, those are three categories. You can break them down further than that, I'm sure. But like you said, there are a lot of very personal, subjective experiences that we're having maybe in the spiritual realm, which we don't have instruments that measure other than our inner instruments, the antakarana, the inner instruments of our interoceptive personal experience, versus things that can be objectively measured. And in the scientific method, and then you have like trying to put your subjective experience into an objective explanation. Or maybe I'm not doing the best job of breaking that down, but like one of the things that I feel like what I notice that a lot of us have lost is that distinction between, you know, if I think it, if I believe it, it must be true. It's a fact for me, and having a sense of humility as an academic or as a science, you know, especially in your, you know, PhD level of research. Gosh, you must just.
Yeah.
Do you have a special folder for that? Like quack? Do you have a quack folder?
I have a lot of folders. I have a lot of folders.
Like a folder titled Quack Research. Look, open when you need a laugh.
Look, there is some. There's also some research that could actually be really good, but it just hasn't been properly done in the, you know, and so it hasn't been peer reviewed and it hasn't been put in the journals, and so we can't really talk about it in Western science a lot as well. But yeah, it's all important.
I think the more detailed that we can get with understanding what we're talking about when we're talking about it, like you could say, okay, well, this study was done, an initial study was done with 12 people, and this is what it showed, you know, just to have that framework that means, okay, well, this is a start, but it's by no means proof. And I think, I don't know, hopefully for those of us who are, if those of you who are still with us in this interview, to take that away, like know what you're looking at, right? And know which box it falls into, so that at least you can be clear if you're sharing that information, qualify which box it's in.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't talk about spirituality and the spiritual experience. And, you know, we've measured mystical states. We've asked people, you know, these questions, and then we're going to put that into statistics and things like that. And it's still subjective experience going into science. I mean, psychology is a lot of that anyway. You know, psychology's got, you know, we're dealing with people's minds. It's not black and white. Like, it's just too,
you can't do it.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a control.
Put it in the right box.
Yeah, but just put it, know what you're talking about it and put it in the right box. It's not that hard, is it?
No.
Shouldn't be.
And research. Do your research of the people that you're listening to. That's what I would say as well.
Right. And okay, so just to kind of pin this one down, you hear a lot of people saying, do your research, but for them, research means going to, for some people, doing your research is reading memes.
There's been some good ones. There've been some really good ones around.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that memes as a cannot be cited.
No, not yet.
Or like
not yet.
Some any old person can do a YouTube video, like you said with the spaghetti study, and YouTube is not a research. You can't cite that in your research. Like so and so's YouTube, right?
No, look, a lot of you can't cite YouTube either.
No,
thank goodness.
So YouTube, just for the record, YouTube is not. You cannot do your research on YouTube.
No, you can't. But you know, it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of good things on YouTube. It's just that you need to go, you know, backwards a bit from that. You know, if you hear something on YouTube or on a podcast or something, and you're like, that is interesting, before you go and regurgitate it to all of your friends, you know, many, many times, have a look at where they got the information from,
Yeah.
try and just make sure that it's in a few different sources, or check out with a teacher that you trust and hey, is this book okay? Is this author okay? Is this,
Yeah.
and having a look at qualifications. They don't need to be necessarily formal qualifications, but what has that person been doing for the last 10 years? Have they been, a heart surgeon, and now all of a sudden they're a meditation teacher, just overnight? Like, where's that sort of come from? Like, just looking at little things and, intuition, but intuition sometimes can be a bit distorted by our own bias as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think that's super. Thank you for bringing that point up. I feel like it's really a timely reminder for all of us, to really be careful about, what we're putting in there, and then definitely before we careful about what we're digesting, eating, through the senses, and then regurgitating out, to our friends. Yeah. Before we close, do you have any favorite pseudoscience, like memes or claims that have been made specifically about mantra or chanting that you would like to officially, debunk?
No. No, I can't really think of a favorite. There's so many.
There's too many. All right. Oh.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be the police, right?
No, look, I don't. I don't want to be saying terrible things about. I mean, I'm being criticised quite a lot at the moment on LinkedIn.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because I spelt OM, and so some people are very upset about that, and they're upset about, like some of the questions that you've asked me about. It's like, how do we, bring this ancient tradition and put it into Western science? And there are some, I'm surprised at how offensive my research is to a lot of people. So there's that as well, and that's fine. That's different, belief
Are you getting
systems.
that? Are you getting that from, Hindu practitioners, from who are in the South Asian culture, or Indian people that are
Yeah,
feeling
I mean,
offended
they
by how
haven't
you
really
presented
said.
it?
Yeah, they haven't said what tradition or anything they're in, but like they do sort of say, Om is not a word, it is this, and this is the Vedic
Yeah,
scripture, and, like all this
yeah,
kind of thing. And, thank you for your, I say thank you for your feedback and move on with my life, really.
yeah,
But, it's really, yes, like honoring those traditions, and I have
yeah,
deepest respect for those traditions. But as we've spoken about, we have a limited, paradigm with the Western scientific
yeah.
framework, and we do what we can to communicate the benefits of these practices to the generations that are here now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about in Australia, but the catchphrase "stay in your own lane" is a really popular idea right now for people who are kind of like in the know, like stay in your lane, and you know define it, right? Like if you define what your lane is, and you say this is what I'm doing, yeah, you're probably, you know if you're doing something new, you're probably going to get a little bit of criticism and backlash, and support and not support. But I appreciate one of the things I appreciate about you as a person, from what we've had the chance to interact so far, is that, you present with that, with the humility of a scientist, and that's, for me, that's the mark of a. I was just having this thought the other day, listening to a particle physicist try to explain what is space on a podcast, and he was like, well, to be honest, we have no idea. I was like, okay, the mark of a refined intelligence is to admit that you don't know what you don't know, and
I
not,
love that.
and yeah, like the more you know, the more you know you don't know.
That's exactly
And
right. Yeah.
yeah, so here we'll all try to stay in our lane, and traffic will flow smoothly.
Yeah, look, and even when you're saying stay in your lane, like, I mean, even in that lane, there is so much to not know.
Yeah,
And, and we don't know. And that's absolutely what I find out. The more research I do, the more I read, the more I know,
yeah,
the more I know I don't know. And yeah,
yeah.
it's a big topic, mantra. Very
Oh,
big topic.
full on. Yeah, I mean, it's everything. You got trauma, you got brain science, you got psychological, you got there's, and then you don't even look at metaphysics yet. Like, there's so much. But yet, those of us who love it and have benefited from it, we just do it because it feels good and it helps. So it helps us get through the day. So anyway, that feels like a great place to wrap up. Like, the more we know, the more we know we don't know.
Yeah,
And for
perfect.
for proper verifiable research, go to gemmaperry.com. No, just kidding. For the policewoman of all scientific research. That was a joke. Oh, I'll be the pronunciation police, and you could be the research police. Well, how's that? No. Wow. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to leave us with in your um, uh, final thoughts on the power of mantra for peace?
Oh wow, that was that's a
Sorry
big
for the
final
leap.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, I guess I think that mantra, like we've said, it can be so many things. So it can be like therapy and help us through times of crisis. And it can also take us, beyond states of health and to sort of altered states of consciousness and things like that. And so, yeah, just choose your path and choose the right teachers.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm, yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.